Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rebel Devil Show, where I, a Manchester United fan from the Rebel County of Cork, give my reaction to each of Manchester United's fixtures. And for the first time in the series, I'm reacting to a win because Manchester United have just beaten Chelsea. Of course, it's not our first win of the season. We did beat Burnley as well, but I didn't actually get a chance to make a reaction to that game. So here we are. We finally get the W, and I'm able to actually react to it. It was a very, very ugly game for so many reasons. It was a very, very scrappy game of football, and that was basically right from the get-go. 6 minutes into the game, Robert Sanchez gets sent off for a foul on Bryan Mbeumo right outside the box, and after this, United absolutely dominated the first half. Bruno Fernandes giving us the lead with his 100th goal for the club, Casemiro then putting us 2-0 up, and I'm thinking, surely we are going to absolutely annihilate Chelsea here. We beat them 4-1 a couple of years ago, 4-0 on the opening day of the 1920 season. I'm thinking we're going to outscore both of those games. It's not quite how it went, though. Despite the fact that Chelsea had taken off so many important players, when I say so many, they had to make 2 changes in the first half, but Cole Palmer was one of those players who did come off. We didn't quite capitalise on the man advantage. As I say, we did go 2-0 up, but I still feel like it could have been a hell of a lot more. And then right at the end of the half, the man advantage went. Casemiro gets sent off for a second yellow card. Listen, the first foul in the 17th minute, I should say. It's a booking. It is a booking. The second one, though, I'm not sure that's a second yellow. It's a foul. I think it should have been a final warning. I don't think it was a second yellow card. But regardless, I don't want to stick up for Casemiro. It was a stupid place to make the foul at a stupid time. You could argue maybe he should have been taken off before the halftime whistle had even blown. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be, and he will be suspended for the next game. The second half, the weather conditions got worse and worse. And Chelsea did end up playing a little bit better. Despite the fact, as I said, they were down to 10 men. They'd taken off basically their entire front line, apart from João Pedro. They actually did create some decent chances. They did have 1 goal disallowed, which is kind of ironic considering it came from a corner that shouldn't have been given because there was an offside. But then, as I said, the goal was disallowed, but they did end up pulling back with, I think, about 11 minutes to go. And would you believe, I've actually completely forgotten who scored the goal. Who was it? Oh my god, it'll come back to me in a second. But regardless, it didn't mean an awful lot in the end. Listen, before the game kicked off, I wasn't very happy with the starting 11. I still cannot understand why Binder is still starting. Now, to give credit where it's due, that was one of his more comfortable performances. He didn't have an awful lot to do in terms of big saves that he had to make, but it was the most confident I think he's looked in a Manchester United shirt this season, at the very least. But I still don't really understand why Lemens hasn't been given that opportunity. I wouldn't be surprised next week if Binder is still in goal against Brentford. I'm not expecting Lemens to make his debut, possibly until January now. I wouldn't be surprised if we waited until the FA Cup, depending on who we get in the third round. It still kind of depresses me that that's all we have to play for now up until January is just Premier League games. As much as the Premier League is the priority, it's just a really low feeling seeing all these teams playing in European football and in the League Cup, and we are literally going week to week. But listen, whatever. It is what it is. But I did have criticisms of that team. I wasn't happy with the midfield. Yes, Bruno and Casemiro were the 2 players who ended up getting the 2 goals. It's not a long-term solution to that midfield. And I guess that's the only kind of blessing about Casemiro getting sent off, is that he won't be playing next week against Brentford. I don't expect too many changes in that game, though. I do think it'll be Bruno and Ugarte. Ugarte, I thought, did decent when he came on. I thought he actually played relatively well against City as well, despite the result. So hopefully he can kick into gear, because I do think there's a good player there with Ugarte. He's had his ups and downs at Old Trafford so far, but hopefully he can get... I wouldn't mind seeing him get a run of games. And if he can keep that form up, well then listen, that's one less issue to worry about. Benjamin Šeško and Bryan Mbeumo, though, they were absolutely fantastic today. They really, really were. I really like the look of our attack at the moment. Listen, we still probably aren't creating enough chances. And fair enough, in this game, with the weather conditions, I think there were certain attacks where the weather did play a bit of a part for both teams, not just Manchester United. I think for Chelsea as well. There were certain crosses that weren't going as far as we would have hoped because of how damp the pitch was. I sound like Jurgen Klopp making those excuses a few years ago about the wind, but genuinely, I'm saying it for both teams. It was a very, very bad pitch to play on. There was one stage Ruben Amorim had to stand outside of his technical area because it was completely flooded. I mean, I was kind of worried there at one stage they might call this game off, but thankfully that didn't happen. But I was really happy with Mbumo and with Šeško. I'm a little bit worried about Ahmad. Small bit worried about Ahmad. He's not had a great start to the season. Now listen, form is temporary, class is permanent. We've heard that saying so many times. I have no doubt Ahmad will pick back up his form at some stage, but hopefully sooner rather than later. He's not been having a very good time at the moment. Dorgu, I thought, played pretty well. He was maybe an honourable mention for man of the match. I wouldn't say he was outright man of the match. I think the two contenders for me for man of the match were De Ligt and Mbumo. I'll probably give it to De Ligt just because he did play the full 90 minutes, but I am liking what I'm seeing from certain players here. I was talking to somebody recently about United's start of the season and how there has been disappointments. There's definitely some major concerns in that team. But I am seeing certain improvements from certain players. I do think there is something there. I think with Amorim, and I do think with a lot of the players we currently have. It's just a case of fine-tuning some of those details, addressing some of these concerns we have in the team. As I say, maybe giving Lemens a run of games in goal. Who knows if he's going to be the main man in between the sticks for United over the next few years. I'm not saying that he will be, I'm not saying that he won't be, but I would like to see him given that opportunity. Luke Shaw. It's just such a weird situation with Luke Shaw. I'm amazed that he hasn't gotten injured yet this season. He's played every Premier League game. I think the Grimsby game is the only game he's missed this season, which obviously was in the League Cup. I'm amazed that he's actually stayed fit for as long as he has. But I still think he is a bit of a concern. He's a walking liability, because you just know he's an injury waiting to happen. The midfield, as I say, still needs to be sorted. I really do hope in January we can go back in for somebody. But I'm liking what I'm seeing from other parts of the pitch. I really am. And I hope this result, as ugly as the win might have been, I really do hope we can go on a bit of a run now, keep getting these wins. We're in the top half of the table, which I never thought I'd be so happy to see. Like, over the years, that's just been a given. Manchester United in the top half of the table. But after the disaster that was the 24-25 season, and after the rough start to this season, seeing us in the top half of the table makes me so happy. It's actually crazy. I never thought I'd say that. This time 10 years ago, if you had told me I'd be celebrating being in the top half of the table after what, match game 5 I think it is now? I never would have believed it, but here we are. Here we are. It's crazy as well. There was a stat thrown out before the game which just really put into perspective how rough these past couple of years have been. That's the first time in 21 months Manchester United have won back-to-back games at home in the Premier League. December 2023 was the last time we did that. Stats like that are very scary. They are really, really scary. And that's why I said at the start of the season, the Premier League is the priority. Not in terms of winning it, but in terms of finishing as high as we possibly can. I would love, of course, to win the FA Cup. Would have loved to have gone on a run in the League Cup. But it's so important that we have a solid season in the Premier League. And hopefully, as I say, this could be the start of a semi-decent run for United. But next week, though, as I say, it's still going to be a tough fixture. Brentford away from home, and Mbumo coming up against his former team. It's not going to be an easy fixture. We've had some interesting results against Brentford since they came up to the Premier League. It was 4-3 last season, shortly before the Europa League final. There was a crazy 1-1 draw. Mason Mount scored his first goal for United in the last minute, and then Brentford went up the other end and got the equaliser. Obviously, Ten Hag got battered 4-0 in his first season. We've had some, interesting games against Brentford away from home over the years. As I said earlier, I'm not expecting too many changes against Brentford. As I say, Ugarte will probably come in for the suspended Casemiro. Take a shot every time I say, as I say, by the way. But other than that, I am expecting the same 11. But look, as I said, there we go again. There are some players in there that I am seeing improvements from. And if they can keep that form up, who knows, maybe we can keep going on this great run. I say great run, it's 2 home wins. Listen, at the moment, that is considered a great run for United, but we can keep this run going and get closer and closer to those Champions League places. Would I consider anything less than a Champions League place a success this season? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Listen, we came 15th last season. It was the worst season Manchester United have had in Premier League history, so technically anything above 15th is an improvement. If we finished 6th or 7th, and I saw a style of play, I saw a way forward, I see more improvements from the players I've just mentioned, and hopefully from some of the other players that I'm a bit concerned about, I would be happy with that. But I still think we can compete for those Champions League places. It's all about getting these results. Listen, Chelsea are going to have a very good season. I know they've had some iffy results themselves over the last couple of weeks or so since the season began, but I do still think they will have a decent season. So getting wins like this, it is very important to beat these big teams, but it's also important to win games against the likes of Brentford, who are a good team, but I don't expect them to be challenging for the European places like I hope that we can. But listen, we'll wait and see. Hopefully next week I can have my first streak of wins to react to for Manchester United. But yeah, that's it for this episode of the Rebel Devil Show, lads. Thank you all so much for tuning in. The Everton Career Mode, obviously we had the preview episode uploaded yesterday. 800 views at the moment. Thank you all so much to everybody who has tuned in to that preview episode. Every day this week, from Monday to Friday, there will be a new episode of the Career Mode dropping 7 p.m. UK and Irish time each day. But as I say, if you did enjoy this video, please do hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel as well, lads. We are on the road to 700 subscribers. I would love to hit that before the end of the year, and I will talk to you all on Monday. Take care.